What does vulnerability mean to you? Do you think it is a sign of weakness or strength? In today's podcast, we'll explore how vulnerability can be fruitful for you. Hello and welcome to Connected Minds podcast. In today's podcast, we will discuss the benefits of vulnerability, including how it can lead to deeper connections with others, personal growth, and more authentic living. Picture this: you're sitting alone in your room, scrolling through social media, feeling disconnected and unfulfilled. You see your friends and acquaintances posting their highlights, achievements, perfect selfies, and glamorous travels, and you can't help but feel like you're not measuring up. You start to wonder, what's wrong with me? Why can't I have it all together like them? But what if I told you that those highlights you see on social media are only part of the story? What if I told you that behind those perfect pictures and curated captions, there are struggles, doubts, and vulnerabilities that most people don't share? What if I told you that embracing your own vulnerabilities can actually unlock your full potential and bring you closer to the life you truly want? That's what we're going to explore in today's podcast, The Courage to be Vulnerable. We'll hear stories of people who have found strength and fulfillment by embracing their vulnerabilities. We'll also share practical tips on how you can start cultivating your own vulnerability and how to navigate the fears and doubts that come with it. So, if you've ever felt like you're not measuring up to the perfect images you see online, or if you've ever felt like something is missing in your life, this podcast is for you. Let's dive into the courage to be vulnerable and unlock your full potential. So, what is vulnerability? Vulnerability is a word that's often associated with weakness or negativity. We're taught from a young age to hide our vulnerabilities, to put on a brave face and pretend that everything is okay, even when it's not. We see images of perfection on social media, and we think that we're the only ones struggling with our own imperfections and flaws. But what if vulnerability is actually a strength? What if being vulnerable is what makes us human, what connects us to one another, and what allows us to grow and thrive? Vulnerability means being honest about our feelings and our struggles and being willing to take risks and put ourselves out there, even when it's scary. It means showing up as our authentic selves, with all of our imperfections and uncertainties, and trusting that we will be accepted and loved for who we are. Meet Sarah. She's a successful business executive who's always been driven and confident in her work. But behind the scenes, Sarah has been struggling with anxiety and self-doubt for years. She felt like she had to project an image of perfection at work and didn't want to show any signs of weakness. But then, something changed. Sarah's team had a major project that was behind schedule, and the pressure was mounting. Sarah realized that she couldn't do it all on her own, and she needed to ask for help. She decided to be vulnerable and honest with her team, telling them that she was feeling overwhelmed and needed their support. To her surprise, her team rallied around her, offering their help and support. Together, they were able to complete the project successfully, and Sarah realized that vulnerability was actually a strength. From that day on, Sarah started to embrace her vulnerabilities more openly. She started sharing her struggles and doubts with her team and her friends, and she found that it actually brought her closer to them. She realized that being vulnerable was what made her human, and it allowed her to connect with others on a deeper level. She also found that when she was willing to take risks and be vulnerable, it opened up new opportunities for growth and learning. Through this experience, Sarah learned that vulnerability is not a weakness but rather a strength that allows us to show up as our authentic selves and to connect with others in a deeper way. By embracing her vulnerabilities, Sarah was able to unlock her full potential, both in her personal life and her career. So, what are the practical tips on how you can start cultivating your own vulnerability and how to navigate the fears and doubts that come with it? 1. Start small. If the idea of being vulnerable feels scary, start with something small. Share a personal story with a friend or family member, or admit to a mistake you made at work. As you become more comfortable with vulnerability, you can gradually work up to sharing bigger and more personal aspects of yourself. 2. Practice self-compassion. Being vulnerable can bring up feelings of shame or self-doubt. It's important to practice self-compassion and remind yourself that everyone has vulnerabilities and imperfections. Treat yourself with kindness and understanding, and remember that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness. 3. Seek support. Cultivating vulnerability can be a challenging process, and it can be helpful to seek support from friends, family, or a therapist. Having someone to talk to and share your fears and doubts with can make the process feel less daunting and help you stay motivated. 4. Embrace uncertainty. Being vulnerable means taking risks and stepping into uncertainty. It's important to acknowledge that vulnerability can be uncomfortable and scary, but it's also a necessary part of growth and learning. Embrace the uncertainty and trust that being vulnerable creates the possibility for new opportunities and experiences. 5. Celebrate your successes. Cultivating vulnerability is a journey, and it's important to celebrate your successes along the way. Take time to reflect on moments when you were vulnerable and the positive outcomes that resulted. Celebrating your successes can help build your confidence and motivation to continue on your path of vulnerability. So, I encourage you to take a step outside of your comfort zone and embrace your vulnerabilities. Remember, it's not about being perfect but about showing up as your authentic self and trusting that you will be accepted and loved for who you are. Thank you for joining me on this journey of exploring vulnerability, and I hope that this podcast has inspired you to cultivate your own vulnerability and unlock your full potential.